Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, did you know I used to be a ringmaster in a circus? I actually did 2 weeks as a ringmaster for Jose Cole's International Circus. I did. So, boys and berries. So today I am doing a little interview here. His name is Marvin Storm, and he's not here yet, but looks like we're having some trouble. We're having trouble streaming to Facebook. This may be an issue with Facebook's end. It is possible the stream has ended or deleted. Aha. So we're having some trouble on Facebook. That's technology. That's just the way it is, and that might be the problem that Marvin is having a challenge coming in here. But I'm going to see if I can make something happen by magic here. It says edit. See if I can make that happen on good old Facebook. Sometimes it just takes a little reboot thing. So save the changes and we'll see what happens. We don't know for sure. I think I'm back. Yeah, it looks like I'm having some challenges on Facebook. However, we've got a default. We are broadcasting on LinkedIn and also YouTube. So as I said before, there's a, oh, I think he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, hang on a second. Let me check in the green room. I think my friend Marvin is here. 1 second. Let me just knock. Marvin, Marvin.
I'm here.
Hey, how you doing? Good day. How you doing? We had some technical difficulties here on this end too. You had a little bit of a challenge getting on, I think?
I couldn't figure out whether it was Google Meets or so I had invitations to both. I couldn't quite figure that out. So.
Yeah, that's what Google sort of, because we're using their calendar, they take priority and want us to use Google Meets. But I'm using a platform called StreamYard.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
There we go. So normally I'm broadcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
So hang on just a second. I'm going to adjust my lighting a little bit, okay?
Oh, sure. I'm not sure if you could hear me there. All set?
Almost here.
Okay.
All right.
Perfecto. Isn't this different, this world of ours? So
we're old enough to remember when we were still using beepers and fax machines, you know?
There you go. I used to use paper and pencil.
Yeah. We thought, I remember the first fax machine transmission that I sent took 20 minutes for one page from Oakland to San Francisco. And I thought that was so cool. Couldn't believe it.
That's part of the challenge with technology, and I kind of hedge my bets and I work on all different platforms just in case. But so today we're going to talk a little bit about exit strategies. Now, this is an interesting topic to me because I had an expo business that I put together with a friend of mine, and him and I never had an exit strategy. Never had anything in place for that. So I have some questions for you. First off, so you're in the Southern California, Northern California?
I'm in Northern, moved from the San Francisco Bay Area a few years ago after I stepped away from my business, and up to the Sierra foothills on the way up to Lake Tahoe, for those that are familiar with this geography.
Beautiful up there. I've been to Lake Tahoe.
Well, we almost didn't have South Lake Tahoe. The fires came within a few miles of burning the city down, but they threw everything they had at protecting that resort. So
more trials and tribulations, correct?
Yep.
So I don't do these videos too long. I keep them 15, 20 minutes or so that people have a chance to consume it. And so your business, you pretty much talk to about other people. You have a podcast of your own, I think.
Yeah, I have a podcast called Business Exit Stories. The podcast is really geared toward an audience of entrepreneurs that have been in business for some time, generally, some that are just starting out and others that are in the trenches, grinding it out, scaling their business, and some that are just a year or two away from deciding how they're going to get out of their business. And universally, the common thread through all of these different types of entrepreneurs and their various stages of growth is that they don't think a lot about how they're going to get out of a business. They spend an enormous amount of time researching getting into business, how to grow their business, to scale it, all sorts of marketing and HR and operational issues, but they give very little thought about how they're going to eventually monetize the decades and sometimes a lifetime of hard work.
Well, even just getting started, you can either build the business to build it up and grow it, or you can build it up to sell it. And you should know what you're going to be doing before you even start building this monstrosity. Like, what if you built a membership type thing with lifetime memberships, and then you decided to get out of it? You can't get out of it.
Well, that's somewhat true. You made the comment there that you're growing it to scale it or growing it to sell it. Well, at the end of the day, you're going to sell. You're either going to pass. There's only so many things that can happen to a business. You're going to live forever, which isn't likely. You're going to pass it on to a family member, a partner, your employees, or a management team. Or you're going to sell it to a third party or wind it down either voluntarily or involuntarily. You're going to be forced out of business. So if those are the only choices, then the smart thing to do is to decide which one of those fits your specific situation and then plan for it. You're not going to live forever. You're not going to run your business forever. Something is going to happen where you're not going to be involved at some point in time.
And I think it's important to know that if you are going to sell it, that you build it for sale. An example is the business I was in was the event industry.
Uh-huh.
And it's sort of a commodity kind of thing. It's an expo, a trade show. And the reality is even if you have all your names branded and trademarked and all that kind of stuff, a person doesn't really need that. So there's no real value in that brand unless you built that brand up to be valuable. If you just had it on there as a logo, it's not that big a deal. And someone could easily just duplicate that show and you don't have a saleable item, a product.
You couldn't be more right. One of the key components of creating value in a business is a differentiation component. That differentiation can be marketing, it can be people, it can be technology, it can be position in the marketplace, it can be a number of things, but you really have to create that differentiation. And then if you can magnify or scale that differentiation into a moat, a competitive moat, where it's very difficult for people to breach the wall to compete with you, then you've created some intrinsic value in your business that a lot of other people and companies out there will be extremely interested in. And especially those that are in your same vertical, your same market niche.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have your specific offering or where you are located geographically, and they want to augment their offering with yours. And then they face a build or buy situation where they have to make a determination. Shall we just invest the money and the time to build up that market position, or should we just simply write a check and buy it? And in most cases, time is of the essence, and strategic acquirers will write the check and will write a big check, much more than a financial buyer who is just looking at your numbers and your metrics and your net bottom line.
Yeah.
They will write a much bigger check. And so when you actually start strategically thinking about positioning your business and you have time to do it, magical things can happen down the road.
Yeah, I had a friend that was into the digital marketing space, and what he did was pretty savvy. He would get one of those 800 numbers, and then he would get this thing, the phone ringing, because he was targeting people that got a DWI or a DUI, and they need a lawyer. So the urgency is there, and they would Google that. So he got that phone ringing, that 800 number, and then he'd sell that 800 number to a lawyer. So it was actually business coming in. And then there's a lot of value there as he scaled that up. You got that phone ringing, and he would just show them how many calls that came in, and the lawyers would just buy it.
Well, that's If you take a look and just leverage off of what I just said, is that he created the differentiation. It takes a long time to build up in the marketplace a 800 number that becomes ubiquitous. And if you can create that, that's really a competitive moat. People just cannot go out and overnight create the brand recognition of an 800 number that people will find and zero in on. And so if you can create that competitive moat, you have something of value.
So in all the podcasts that you do on your podcast, the people you interview, what's the most I would say positive type of business? I don't want to go with the negative type business, but what's the most positive?
The podcast is really positioned. I mean, when I walked away from my business and thought about, what I could have done differently that would have increased the exit value of the business, I did well, but I could have done a lot better. And as I thought through that process, because entrepreneurs only get one or maybe two times at the plate when they exit, it isn't something they do every day. Their core competency is something they learn and hone and improve over time, where they're really, really good at it. But when you comes to exiting a business, they only do it once or twice, as I said. And since you don't do it that often, you aren't familiar. You just don't know what you don't know. And as I thought about that, I thought, I'm just going to start a podcast. If I had had some information that could have pointed me in the right direction and given me a kind of a heads up of what to expect, that would have been really valuable, at least to me. And so I went out and I decided that I would interview the deal makers, the M&A specialists, the business brokers, the investment bankers, transaction attorneys, CPAs, those type of folks that do this every day, all day long. And they have a portfolio of transactions they've dealt with, and sometimes hundreds of transactions they've been involved with. And those transactions are good ones that were home runs. And we talk about those and what are some of the takeaways. And then there are those that went sideways, blew up, and maybe didn't close. And the entrepreneur just had to wind down his business. And there's reasons why that happens, and it doesn't have to happen. And so we talk about the takeaways and the learnings that you can take away from other people's experiences so you don't have to experience the pain. And that if you can do the right things, you can put your position into, reap some really attractive rewards. And so the podcast just talks about, each podcast has 4 transactions, 2 good, 2 bad, and the takeaways for each of those. And so it's an entertaining podcast, but most importantly, the audience are these people along this journey of growing and scaling, and at some point in time they're going to exit. And I've gotten feedback where people have said, I don't want to turn out like that guy. That sounds like where I'm at right now. I don't want to do that. And I need to start thinking differently and doing things differently. And that's really gratifying to know that, some of the things that have been shared are actually going to make a difference in people's lives and what they walk away with in their pocket after they exit their business.
Is there any specific vertical industry you work in, like real estate or restaurants, or is it kind of like all over the board?
No, we have, all different types of people on the podcast. We have people that are specifically geared toward a specific vertical. A few months ago, I had a guest on that all he does is sell restaurants, all different sizes of restaurants, from large national chain restaurants to local, Main Street restaurants in a specific community. But he just does restaurants, and he's got offices all over the country. And so we chatted about, the restaurant business. And I have other people that do HVAC businesses. That's all they do. I have other people that, deal in small Main Street businesses, and those that deal in upper mid-market where the sales price is 5, 10, 15 million. And we even talked to some folks that, are into the, 50, $100 million exits. But the interesting thing is what I found, and it's sort of amazing actually, is that the same principles that someone that is running a local business in the community that's doing $500,000, $1 million a year, whatever the sales are, or less sometimes, the same principles apply to the guy that's, selling a $15-20 million a year business or larger. It's the same type of things that you have to do to extract value out of your business. And if you can lock those situations down and include some planning and thought and some strategic thinking into positioning that business for sale, I can tell you with unequivocally that you will walk away with a lot more money in your pocket when you close.
Yeah, and just knowing someone that's already blazed the trail, so you know that you're not supposed to step on that rock or this. You got to know
That's
where
right.
to go. It makes it much, much easier. Like I look back sometimes and I think I had it really, really good. I got my start as a magician, which is the MagicBrad thing there. I got my start as a magician, and I created a trade show around the event industry. So I had 2,000 event planners from corporations here in Minneapolis coming through the door. So that was really, really good. But I didn't realize at that time how valuable that was. You know, it's kind of like blinded by it. And now I look back at it and go, holy smokes, I had a great database of active event planners.
Well, sometimes it takes decades to build the type of database that you're talking about there. And that is an asset that has a lot of value to, certain types of acquirers out there that may not be in your vertical or may be doing a roll up of a bunch of different verticals, and you're the major player in that section. And you could be talking about any type of business. You could be talking about electrical distributors. You could be talking about car dealers. You could be talking about, consulting companies, any type of business out there where you've carved out a specific niche and you have a brand and you have a database, you have technology, you have some sort of competitive positioning. That is, if it is positioned properly and you can tell the right story to the right audience, you will be able to exponentially increase the amount of value and money that you're going to put in your pocket when the time comes to step away.
Yeah, I say sometimes it's not about the numbers. It might be more about the quality. Like you can't sell hamburgers and hot dogs to vegans and vegetarians because there's not a match.
Well, that's true. And that comes down to thinking about who your buyer is. And I've asked this questions often when I have sat down with entrepreneurs. I said, and the thing about entrepreneurs, they're optimists. They just think that their business is worth a lot of money and it's just going to work out because that's how they run their business. They always look for the opportunities and they always push through the difficulties and challenges and they make things happen. Yeah. And that's a thought process and that's a personality trait, and that is phenomenal. But unfortunately, the data does not support that. If you just have that mindset that things are going to work out, the data does not support that. If you apply that to exits, that does not happen. The right things have to happen prior to exiting a business. And some of those things are like planting an oak tree. It takes time to grow the oak tree, and it takes time to plan an exit. Some of the things that become valuable in an exit can't be done in 6 months before you decide that you're going to sell. One of the things I've noticed is that a lot of entrepreneurs, their exit strategy is event driven. They think they're just going to live forever and they just love what they do. And things are just going to be like this all the time. They've kind of nailed it down. Then something happens. They get sick. There's a death in the family, a partner, a problem. They get burned out. A competitor enters the marketplace. There's technology shift or whatever it may be. And then they say, geez, I think I want to sell. And then it's a run for the exits, and it's 6 months, a year. And those stories, and there's some of the stories shared on the podcast don't turn out well. There's some real heartbreaking stories of decades or a lifetime of hard work squandered on the last lap because there wasn't the type of planning.
Yeah, that's a similar situation. That situation happened with my old expo partner. Fortunately, we're both retiring, but COVID came along and we were in the event business.
Well, that's a tough, yeah.
So here's your domain, I believe, Business Exit Stories.
Yep. That's Business Exit Stories. And for your audience out there, I get a lot of feedback from the people that listen to the podcast saying, kind of what's the next step? I just don't understand the process. And so I created a little report. So if you take that businessexitstories.com/report and just go there, and you can download a kind of a white paper, 10-page summary of some of the big picture things that you need to think about. And it'll kind of get you in the thought process of what you need to do to move your business toward a successful transaction at some point.
Let me see if I got this right here. Just like that, /report, right?
/report.
Business.com/report. Perfect. Well, this has been wonderful and enlightening, Marvin. I'm going to put.
It's been fun. I very appreciate it. In my career, I've attended a lot of trade shows and all over the country and most of the states, and that's a business that requires a lot of preparation and execution to pull those things off, because it's a new event every week or every time you pull one off, and it's a fire drill.
You go into any hotel at almost any time and look at the roster, and there's events happening all day long. But now with COVID, there's not as many. But I'm going to let you go into the green room there. If you want, there's some digital hors d'oeuvres back there. You can enjoy some of those. And
okay,
if you
cool.
Hang on, we can have a little chat and I'll explain more about how I do this. But other than that, I'm going to shut this off and appreciate you taking the time, Marvin.
All right, this has been fun.
Peace. Well, there we go. There's my friend Marvin about exit strategies. It's something definitely you got to think about when you get into this kind of thing. You can't just build it and they'll come, because they might leave. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time. Peace, love, and happiness. This is MagicBrad signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be well.